you are someone whose family and yourself grew up in the Soviet Union. Your parents were part of that underground church, really faced those sufferings and persecutions firsthand. And when Diane Montoya asked you how did you feel when the Berlin Wall fell, you said to her, quote, I had a deep joy that finally this atheistic system had collapsed. However, I could not have imagined that the breakdown of this atheistic system would usher in a worse situation in Europe, which is now before us, the dictatorship of gender ideology. This is really a dictatorship. It is actually the same method as in communist times. That is a powerful, fascinating observation. How do you mean, Your Excellence, that you see those same methods as in communist times with this dictatorship?
This is evident. We have this already since decades, since the fall, but increasingly in the last years in the Western countries, especially Europe, United States, or in other countries of Latin America, that they introduced cunning dictatorial laws, very cunning, the so-called laws of hate speech.
Mm.
So when you simply defend common sense, natural law, family, and say homosexual relationships are against nature, against reason, which is evident, simply evident, you are punished in Europe. Even you can be punished with prison. We had a case of the minister in Finland, a lady. She was a former minister, a believing Lutheran lady, and she once quoted the Bible saying that homosexual acts and relationships is a sin, publicly. And she was accused of hate speech, and she had to go through so many processes, juridical trials, until the latest appeal court. But unfortunately, she was absolved. But you see, she had to go through this humiliation so many years. And this is now evident, a method of, like the communists did in my time, I remember. For example, they did not say hate. Sometimes they also used, the communists, hate, because when you were against the communist system, they said to you, you are hating them. Or they say you are an enemy of the Soviet Union. But to be an enemy, it's almost the same content as to be hate. And so there were laws, especially under Stalin, where people, priests and others were condemned simply because they were enemies of the people. And so you see, these hate speech laws, this is almost the same as the communist laws of the enemies of the people. And without any appeal, they were condemned. And then the communists promoted the atheistic materialistic ideology from the kindergarten, from the small one, up to the university. It was always there. And we have the same scenario in our day in almost all Western Europe countries and Latin America countries, that from the kindergarten, they are already pushing the gender ideology very clearly. And so you see, these are, for me, we have a new, I call this neo-Marxist, neo-communist gender ideology dictatorship in the Western countries. We must protest against this. We must unmask this as dictatorial, as totalitarian, and to unite all the people of good will and common sense to make alliance, even political, against the new dictatorship, neo-Marxist gender ideology dictatorship in the Western countries, to save human being, to save family.
Yeah. It's been such an immense propaganda effort in the West, and it's interesting. You mentioned how neo-Marxist it is, neo-communist. I've even heard Catholic scholars who even call it neo-Gnostic because of the dualism that Gnosticism presents between body and soul and body and spirit, and how transgenderism is a newer manifestation of such a heresy.
Yes, this is, of course, neo-Gnosticism. It's a very good observation you gave. And the Gnostics, 2000 years ago, one of the pillars was also the so-called androgenism. It means a being which is where there is no difference between the sexes, but you have to overcome the difference of the sexes, they said, the Gnostics, and create a new being which is in the same time male and female, androgenic. So, and this is pure gender ideology which we have today. This is neo-Gnosticism also.